In a hidden corner of prehistoric South America, the land breathed with mystery. Towering trees whispered tales of giants, and rivers carved stories into stone. Among this untouched world roamed the Amargasaurus, a strange creature with twin rows of spines on its neck. Unlike the fearsome predators that stalked the forests, this herbivore held a quiet strength. When a devastating drought threatened the balance of life, and predators closed in on the last green valley, the Amargasaurus would rise not to conquer but to protect. In silence, it would make a stand, showing that even peaceful giants carry great power. The valley lay silent under the early morning sun. Mist curled around tall ferns, and the ground was soft beneath a layer of fallen leaves. A warm breeze blew across the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth. In the heart of this lush paradise, a lone figure stood motionless. With twin rows of tall, thin spines running down its neck and back, the Amargasaurus was a wonder of evolution. It was not fast like the raptors or strong like the sauropods, but it held a presence that commanded attention. Amari, a young Amargasaurus, had always lived in the Valley of Ferns. The land was fertile, the water clear, and danger was rare. Her days were filled with peaceful grazing and slow walks under the canopy. The herd stayed close, always alert but never afraid. Amari had grown up hearing stories from the elders about predators beyond the cliffs and deserts where death ruled. But here, in the heart of the valley, life was safe. Then came the shift. The rain that once fell every few days stopped. The streams began to dry. Ferns withered and the great trees dropped their leaves. Birds stopped singing. The sky, once blue, turned gray with smoke from distant fires. The animals grew restless. Carnivores began wandering closer to the valley's edge. The elders gathered in silence. Their hollowed eyes watched the changing world with unease. No one remembered a time like this. Amari watched them from a distance, her young heart beating faster than it should. One night, a strange sound echoed through the trees, a roar not heard in many seasons. It came from the cliffs. The herd froze. Amari lifted her head, eyes wide. It was the call of the Giganotosaurus, the largest predator in the region. Its hunger reached where its legs could not. Something had drawn it close. The next morning, the stream at the northern edge of the valley stopped flowing. Fish lay dead. Waterholes were now pits of dry mud. Panic began to take root. Smaller herbivores abandoned the valley, migrating toward the southern plains. But the Amargasaurus herd remained. They had nowhere else to go. Amari knew they could not survive like this. She walked alone to the edge of the cliff, looking out at the dry world beyond. Dust filled the air. Charred forests burned in the distance. Smoke clouded the horizon. She realized then that the valley was not just their home. It was the last sanctuary for every creature still alive. If they left, the valley would fall into the hands of predators. Something had to be done. Over the next few days, Amari wandered deeper into the valley. She searched for food, for shelter, for any clue of how to restore the balance. She passed herds of weakened hadrosaurs and injured iguanodonts. The smaller creatures looked to her with weary eyes. Though young, Amari stood tall among them. Her spines shimmered in the fading sun, casting long shadows across the dry soil. One evening, while drinking from the last stream that still flowed, Amari heard a rustle. She turned, alert. From the brush emerged a pack of dromaeosaurs, small, quick predators with sharp teeth and cunning minds. They had not dared enter the valley before, but desperation had driven them in. Amari stood her ground. The dromaeosaurs circled her, but they hesitated. Her spines were high and sharp, her tail thick and heavy. One wrong move and she could crush a hunter. After a tense moment, the pack withdrew. For now. That night, Amari returned to the herd and spoke with the elder Matic. He was the oldest Amargasaurus, his spines broken from battles past. He listened carefully and then said, "We must defend the valley. Not just for ourselves, but for all who remain. The Giganotosaurus will come. We must prepare." Word spread. Herbivores who could fight stayed. Others took refuge in caves. The Amargasaurus herd moved to the center of the valley, where water still flowed. Their long necks allowed them to spot danger early. Their spines made them harder to attack from above. They formed a circle around the last waterhole. Soon, trouble arrived. A young Carnotaurus charged into the valley, hungry and mad from thirst. It attacked a group of weakened hadrosaurs near the riverbed. Amari saw it and ran. With a low bellow, she swung her tail, striking the Carnotaurus across the side. Its armor deflected the worst of it, but the message was clear: this land was defended. The following day, the Giganotosaurus appeared. It was taller than the trees, its mouth filled with jagged teeth. Its eyes were dull with hunger. It stepped into the valley like a storm, scattering smaller creatures as it passed. The air went still. The Amargasaurus herd stood in formation. Spines up, heads high, tails ready. Amari moved to the front, the wind brushing against her face. The predator looked at them. Then it roared. The roar of the Giganotosaurus shook the valley. Birds burst into the sky. Smaller animals fled into the trees. The Amargasaurus herd remained still, their silence louder than the roar itself. Amari stepped forward. Her muscles tensed, but she felt no fear. She had trained for this moment not in battle, but in purpose. She knew what was at stake. The Giganotosaurus charged. Its footsteps thundered through the earth. Dust flew in all directions. Amari turned, running toward it, not away. With a sharp call, she signaled the herd. They moved as one, flanking the beast from both sides. Their tails swung like hammers. Their spines flared in the sun. The predator snapped its jaws, but caught only air. It turned left, then right, confused by the formation. Amari charged from behind, swinging her spined neck across its flank. Blood spilled. The beast roared again, more in frustration than pain. The herd circled, forcing it back toward the cliffs. The Giganotosaurus lunged again, this time catching a young male by the tail. But before it could bite down, Amari crashed into its leg. The weight and power of her body pushed it off balance. It stumbled, roared, and stepped back toward the ledge. One final strike. Amari lifted her tail high and slammed it into the predator's face. The Giganotosaurus screamed and slipped. Rocks gave way beneath its feet. With a final thrash, it fell over the edge, crashing into the canyon below. The valley went silent. Amari stood at the edge, her breath heavy, her legs shaking. The herd slowly gathered behind her, their heads bowed in respect. All around them, creatures began to emerge from hiding. Hadrosaurs, ankylosaurs, even small theropods stepped out, eyes wide with awe. The Giganotosaurus was gone. The threat had passed. But the damage remained. Trees were dying. Water was scarce. The valley was still at risk. Amari knew they had only one time, not salvation. She turned to Matic and said, "We need to bring life back." The next day, the herd began a new task. Using their feet and tails, they dug deeper channels to redirect what little water remained. They broke open seed pods and spread them across fresh soil. They encouraged birds to carry seeds to higher ground. Slowly, life began to breathe again. Amari traveled to the edge of the desert where green still touched the dust. She led a group of survivors back to the valley. Not just herbivores, but all who needed refuge. The valley was no longer just a home. It was a sanctuary. Months passed. Rain finally returned. The rivers swelled. Ferns regrew. Trees blossomed. The creatures of the valley healed. And Amari? She grew old, her spine stronger than ever. Her name became legend, told by parents to young ones as the story of the Amargasaurus who stood her ground. A guardian not of stone or steel, but of purpose and peace. Years later, deep within the valley, the wind moved through tall trees and over rivers now full again. The valley of ferns thrived. Animals of every kind walked freely without fear. Above them stood a stone carved by time, a natural monument formed where Amari once made her stand. Young Amargasaurus calves played beneath its shadow. They did not know the hunger of drought or the sound of a predator's roar. They only knew peace. But peace did not come from stillness. It came from courage. It came from Amari. Her legacy lived not in bones but in balance. A peaceful valley. A quiet guardian. And a memory carved into every tree and stream. The story of Amargasaurus.